For like ever, we've used the computer as a metaphor for the brain, right? But what if that's, well, just wrong? What if it's something way more alive, more dynamic? Today, we're going to dive into a radical new idea called the Brain Kinematics Model. It completely flips the script. It says your mind isn't about circuits and code at all. It's more like a constantly flowing field of energy.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we're going to tear down that old computer idea. Then, we'll meet the three key players in this new system. After that, we'll look at how it takes in information, how it keeps itself balanced, which is super important, and then the big one. What does this all mean for who you are, for your sense of self? Okay, first things first, we're talking about a whole new way to think about the brain. And to do that, we kind of have to let go of one of the biggest ideas we've had for a long, long time. So, really, think about it for a sec. Is your brain a computer? I mean, we use the language all the time, right? Processing information, storing memories, running on autopilot. It feels like it fits. But does it really? Does that cold, logical computer model capture the messy, emotional, totally unpredictable roller coaster that is the human mind? Well, this new model comes in and says a very firm no. It argues that the whole computer thing is just way too stiff, too mechanical. It just doesn't work for explaining something as alive and flowing as consciousness. So, if it's not a computer, what is it? Okay, try this on for size. Picture your brain not as a hard drive, but as something like a thick, jiggly gel, a viscoelastic continuum, to be technical. And in this model, every thought, every feeling, every sensation you have isn't a piece of data. It's strain. It's a little bit of tension or a ripple in that gel. So the brain's main job isn't to compute ones and zeros. It's to manage this constant physical flow of energy and tension. Totally different way of looking at it. Okay, so if the brain is this energy field, what are the parts doing the work? Well, the model points to a core triad, three main structures that are basically the management team for all this energy.
And this is where it gets really cool. It takes parts of the brain we already know and gives them new job titles. So the amygdala, we usually think of it as the fear center. Here, it's the emotional capacitor. Think of it like a battery that stores up any leftover emotional energy. Then you have the hippocampus. It's not just for memory, it's the strain flow booster, kind of like a pump that speeds up and directs the flow of that energy. And finally, the cortex. That's the processing reactor. That's the powerhouse where all that raw strain gets turned into what we actually experience as thought and action.
Right, so how does this whole energy system deal with everything coming at it? From the outside world and from our own thoughts. There's a really beautiful symmetry to how this works. The model says the brain breaks down everything it perceives into three basic questions. What is it? How does it move? And why does it matter? And then it beautifully mirrors that on the output side. The what gets turned into our imagination, our internal world. The how it moves becomes our behavior, our external actions. And the why it matters, that's what creates connection, lasting change. That, right there, is learning. Okay, this next part is absolutely crucial. With all this energy or strain flowing around, how does the brain not just completely short circuit? Well, it's all about a constant, high-stakes balancing act. And it follows a rule that might sound familiar, kind of like the conservation of energy in physics. Basically, all the strain coming in has to be accounted for. It's got to go somewhere. It can either be turned into an output, a thought or action, or it can be stored as leftover residual energy, or it can be used to physically rewire the brain. That's plasticity, how we learn. The key thing is, no energy just vanishes. It's only ever transformed. So what happens to that leftover residual strain? The brain basically has three ways to handle it. 1, it can just let it build up, that's accumulation. 2, it can deal with it as it happens, that's resolution. Or 3, it can clean it up later, that's erasure. Let's start with accumulation. You know this feeling. It's stress. It's being overwhelmed. It's when stuff is coming at you way too fast for you to process. That extra, unprocessed energy gets dumped into the amygdala for storage. And what does that feel like? Well, it's emotional tension. It's those thoughts that just loop and loop in your head. The model calls them gravity wells, little pockets of tension that just suck your perception and attention right back to them. Now, resolution. This is the good stuff. This is the complete opposite. It's that feeling of being in the zone, in a state of flow.
It's when that whole core triad, the amygdala, hippocampus, and cortex, are all just humming along in perfect sync. Strain comes in and it's converted smoothly into thoughts and actions. No backlog. This is where you get focus, creativity, mental clarity. It's the brain just perfectly balanced. And then there's erasure. Think of this as the brain's nightly cleanup crew. Now, it's not deleting memories. That's a key point. It's about releasing the emotional charge, the stored up strain that's attached to those memories. And where does this happen? Primarily when we're dreaming, during REM sleep. So according to this model, dreams are literally the brain letting off steam, discharging all the tension it built up during the day so it can start fresh. It's a nightly reset button.
And of course, this whole balancing act isn't the same throughout our lives. When we're kids, we're in a massive state of accumulation. We're just soaking everything up, forming these core emotional patterns that stick with us. Then, in adulthood, we ideally hit our peak, a state of optimal balance where we're best at resolving things. But as we get older, the system, well, it gets a bit slower. It's harder to resolve that strain, so old residuals can hang around longer. And maybe that's what nostalgia is, the lingering resonance of old unresolved emotional energy.
Okay, let's pull the camera way back for the big picture. If our minds are just this nonstop process of managing a flow of energy, what on earth does that mean for consciousness? And more importantly, what does it mean for you? There's this one line from the model that just nails the whole idea. Consciousness is the motion of balancing itself. Think about that. Consciousness isn't some thing the brain produces, like a factory. It's the action. It's the verb. It's the never-ending process of the brain trying to find its balance. And this, for me, is the biggest takeaway of all. Your sense of self, the you that you think of as you, it's not some static file saved in your brain. In this model, the self is just the equilibrium point. It's the moving center of this dynamic, energetic balancing act. You're not a noun. You're a verb. You are a process, constantly in motion. So that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending question. If your self is just this moving balance point, then who are you when that balance shifts? When a new experience or just getting older or even one intense emotion changes the entire system? It kind of suggests that who we are isn't fixed at all. It's something that's being created and recreated in every single moment.